welcome back again. We have had a lot of Ori matches today. This is the last one of the evening, night, morning, depending on your time zone. My name is Gramelios on commentary, and I'm joined by Lurking Assassin. What's up, dude?
Hello, everyone. I'm Lurking Assassin.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about this race we have upcoming?
Yes, of course. So this is the first match of the Valley of the Wind group. It's going to be between Richard and Mills. And this is also excitingly also my group, so I'm looking forward to see how this game's going to go. Do you want to start introducing us to the runners?
Yeah, dude, you're going to have a personal investment in this. But yeah, let's talk about our runners. First up, we have ogNdrahciR, otherwise known as Richard. That's Richard backwards if you don't know what in the world ogNdrahciR is. Richard is a good friend of mine with a pretty cool history when it comes to Ori. To give you some stats, which is going to sound negative, but it'll be positive. Richard lost all of his matches in the last tournament, but then since then, he has improved his PB by 9 minutes, dropping it down to 32.49, which is top 25 in the world, and is currently now top 20 in the tournament. So I'm very excited to see what we're going to be getting from him. And then Lurking, I'll throw to you to tell us about our other competitor.
All right, the other racer is going to be Mills. He is actually one of the newest runners to Ori the Blind Forest. He actually first started running after watching the AGDQ race and thought that Soro Bash looked cool and he wanted to do that. So he started running. And another interesting thing about him is that he actually PB'd today, what I believe, and got a 41.44, which is a great time for a starter runner.
It absolutely is. Oh, we'll also take a minute. We'll be getting this race going nice and shortly here. We'll take a moment to also point out the input methods, another important factor. Mills is going to be on the right side of the screen, and he will be playing on pure keyboard mouse, as I think is the majority of runners these days, whereas Richard on the left is going to be playing hybrid keyboard mouse and controller. We'll talk about that more, and we'll be getting this race going in just a few seconds. Prepare for the transition. God, I love that.
Yeah, this whole animations and intros are amazing.
Shout out to Hobbs, as always. Lurking, I'm going to throw it to you to talk about the early game of Ori.
All right, so the first skip in the game, a very difficult skip, is called the intro skip, where you have to press escape and skip the cutscene, but it's always difficult because timing that escape is kind of difficult. And yeah, the very beginning of the run is pretty much just them running towards getting Sign, which is the first kind of skill of the game, which allows us to get the game started.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone who's never seen this game whatsoever, this is a Metroidvania. We won't go into all the details to describe Ori, but basically right now we only have the abilities to run and jump, and jumping is slightly faster than running, which seems to be true in a lot of games for whatever reason. So you're going to be seeing a bunch of jumping whenever they're along flat ground, and then that's going to bring us over to Sign, which, as Lurking mentioned, is the first skill, and is also going to be a companion character for the rest of the game.
And right after this cutscene, you're going to watch Richard and Mills have their first kind of fight of the game. We're going to have to fight 3 Frankies, which seems like a very basic fight, but it could actually save or lose you a lot of time if done correctly or wrong, which is very interesting.
Well, it's one of these fights that, by the way, we see a color code from Richard over on the left. It's one of these fights that can compound on itself. Like, if you mess up one of these shots, then the Frankies tend to get out of position, and then they're jumping on top of each other, and it doesn't, like, kill your run and lose you a bunch of time. It just is annoying and loses you a few seconds where you would ordinarily expect a pretty clean intro. So what can we expect out of this next section?
Well, right now we're going to see both runners getting towards the first skill tree, which is going to be the wall jump. And you're also going to notice them taking some sort of intentional damage. So like right now, both runners are keeping track of their health, because in a second they're going to have to do a trick where they're going to have to die to save some time, which they want to reduce their health as much as you can. So if you see a bunch of damage taken, that's intentional.
Mm-hmm. I think that's just a good general rule of thumb. Like, we will either point out or probably just react with some weird guttural noise when there's an unintended death or some rough damage or something, but like, that damage Richard took was intentional because he starts with 3 health. He wants to get down to 1 in order to have an optimal death. There it is, nicely done. We're going to see Mills on the right get his attempt at it. That trick, Ghost Door, doesn't save a lot of time. It saves a few seconds, but I mean, it is a few seconds, and that's
but also added on that, you do it multiple times throughout the run where it kind of adds up because you skip a good amount of doors.
Oh, totally. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention health one more time. How does health work in this run?
You start off the game with 3 health, and then every time you get to an ability tree or pick up a health cell, you completely heal up. So right now you saw the runners get their first health cell, which got them up to 4 and healed them up so they could go safely through this next section.
Yeah, absolutely. When we haven't talked a lot about experience, it looks like Richard on the left actually turning on his UI to check his experience, which is a little bit low. Shouldn't be a problem for someone with Richard's experience. He's going to take an extra second. It's possible to damage boost through those brambles, but he's going to intentionally get a bunch of experience in order to level up on this experience flower, which will be happening right about now.
Yep, and the reason he wanted to level up in that area because there's those spores that are blocking your way up. So if you level up, like that shock blast that comes out of you when you level up is going to kill those instead of you wasting the time of just shooting them down, which saves a good amount of seconds.
Oh yeah, plus it's just satisfying visually and aesthetically.
And that is not the only timed level up that we're going to see, because like throughout the whole run pretty much the XP is routed and we kind of know exactly where we're going to level up every time we do.
Definitely. Can I just say I love this green color that Richard has. The color code is something you'll see pretty commonly. It does not functionally affect the run whatsoever. It just is sort of a fun way to add some variety. And that green color, I think, is, even though it's random, I think the green is more random than other colors.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never known about the color coding until I started watching races, and I was like, oh, everyone has that.
Anyway, getting word from our support that there was about a 12-second difference at wall jump. Richard on the left does have a lead. Not too much to be worried about in this early game. There's a lot that can change, but Richard with the early lead. I do want to point out, just for context for everyone watching the race, that Richard's PB is about 9 minutes faster than Mills. Richard's been with this game for quite a while, and Mills only started about a month ago after the AGDQ 2018 race. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Ori, anything can happen in Ori, but not surprised to see Richard with a bit of an early lead here.
Especially with this coming up section, because like the whole next area, Blackroot Burrows, is a cycle-based section. So if Richard misses a cycle, which Mills catches, that's 8 seconds, and they're pretty much almost tied up again. So they're still very close.
Well, I mean, even as you said that, Richard just had like 1 second or whatever of little minor issues with his save anywhere. And that's Richard's still in the lead, but that's going to give Mills just another second or two to catch up. Richard successfully, hard word to say, pulled off his save anywhere, and that's going to bring him right into BRB, where he gets a whole other host of new challenges.
Now that you mentioned save anywhere, do you want to explain what exactly it is for the people who don't know what save anywhere does?
Definitely. Save Anywhere, simplest way to describe it is menu manipulation. Ordinarily, there's an ability menu you can use to unlock abilities, but when you have the ability menu open, you cannot move Ori, unless you do Save Anywhere, which lets you move around with the ability menu open. And the reason you do that is that it allows you to spend an ability point and save the game anywhere you want to. That's why we call it Save Anywhere. You can save underwater, you can save in midair, during a cutscene, whatever you want. And we use it primarily to skip cutscenes in this run. So whenever you see a Save Anywhere, assume that it's to skip a cutscene.
And I would see both runners going through the tragedy, which is Blackroot Burrows and all these difficult cycles and spikes and insta-kills. But it seems like so far they're all doing pretty well. Like getting off safely.
Absolutely. Blackroot Burrows is it's a tricky area for a number of reasons. First and foremost, because it's just super dangerous. Mills on the right, we see having a little bit of trouble with his jump, which is more precise than I think Richard made it look. But it's also difficult because it's so cycle-based. If you make these mistakes, your time loss tends to compound on itself, since you.
But it also could be a nice thing where like you could possibly miss a jump but then still catch the cycle. So it could be very forgiving or very punishing, depending on your luck.
I agree. That's a great point. It's an area that I think is fair to say most runners, I know that's true. This is true for myself. You're always very relieved to successfully get through Blackroot Burrows.
Yeah, definitely. It's like biggest reset point for any runner.
Yeah. I want to just direct attention to the left side. Richard's still with a bit of a lead as he approaches the next little bit of fun we have. What's coming up next?
So Richard right now is going to do another cutscene skip, which is called the Darkness cutscene skip. So as you're going to see, in a second, he's going to set up another Save Anywhere and save and reload the game after that to skip an entire cutscene, which is a kind of long cutscene, so it's kind of important to get that one. And then after that, he's going to get one of the fastest abilities in the game, which is Dash, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before talking about Dash, I also just want to point out, just from a few minutes ago, earlier in the run, we mentioned that our experience route is important. because it allowed us to have that time level up, the experience route is going to remain important because here it allowed us to have enough ability points to skip that darkness cutscene, and it's going to be very useful for a another sequence break coming up. So I guess I lied. I'm actually going to throw it back to you to talk about dash and the next cool trick we have.
Alright, so dashing is, as you can see in Richard's screen, he just dashes and it allows you to go way faster than just running. And let me just get into the sequence break that he's going to do. He's going to do a trick called the Frankie walk. So as you can see, he's taking that Frankie in a little nice walk all the way over to the right side of the area. And it's because he wanted to time a level up at a specific area. So the reason he wants to time that level up is because in this game, whenever you level up, it regenerates your entire HP and energy bars. And there's a 4 energy door that you need to go through, but he only has 2 energy. So what he's going to do is put 2 energy in the door, kill the Frankie, get his XP to level up, and put 2 more energy so he could go through and skip a very big section of the game.
Almost got it. Absorb the experience, level up. Nicely done, but Richard's not out of the woods yet. He immediately goes into an area known as the Death Gauntlet, and if that doesn't sound friendly, it's because it's not. There are Frankies and poison water and slimes and spikes and crushy things that can crush you in all kinds of ways. Nice little death glide. That's actually something that Richard, I think, may have discovered, which is pretty interesting. Looks like Richard is almost through, just has to, well, okay, safety save. He's going to make it past these slimes and go right down into Moon Grotto. That is a very important sequence break. Richard is done with his. We're going to see Mills take his attempt at it now.
Let's hope he could get through it and the Death Gauntlet safely, because it is, if we didn't mention that earlier, it is the most punishing area in the game.
Oh no! I'm sorry to interrupt. Richard on the left attempted a trick known as, another quick death, attempted a trick known as the God Cycle or the Early Grotto Cycle, and it turns out there are 3 frames that are sort of relevant for this trick. The first and third frame will allow you to skip into the crushers early and save 8 seconds. The middle frame kills you. And that's what happened to Richard, unfortunately.
And now he missed it again, so that was a big time loss for Richard, giving Mills a chance to catch up a little bit. Let's see him go through the Death Gauntlet now.
Absolutely. You're going to see Richard sort of set up his damage. He's currently at 2 health. You saw him quickly toggle his UI to check it. That damage he just took was intentional to drop down to 1 because we have another Keystone door coming up just right about now. So this death for Richard will be intentional to skip the door opening animation. So lurking...
As you can see, Mills has struggled a little bit with that jump.
Yeah.
Getting on that boulder could be very difficult sometimes. You just slide down it.
He's through, though. Always a relief to...
And if you want to explain what Richard's about to do right now with the blind movement.
Yeah, totally. So Richard just picked up double jump, and he did another cutscene skip, but this one's a bit different. In this one, the camera remains locked, allowing Richard to do blind movement. So Richard, nicely done by him, actually went off to the left and jumped over a bunch of poison water without being able to see his character, and was able to make it partway up the wall. So that's a good job by him. And with that, we're going to see Richard, just sort of continue on. It's nice to have double jump. We generally consider getting to double jump to be the first major leg of the run to be complete.
Right, now Mills is approaching towards his double jump tree.
He is indeed. So we saw Richard, by the way, we see Richard doing a trick right now known as the Grotto Skip, having a bit of trouble with it. There we go, no problem at all. Grotto Skip is a small, precise little wall jump that allows you to skip the left half of Moon Grotto. Saves, I don't know how much time. It saves a pretty decent amount of time. Looks like Richard got that 3rd try, so if Mills can get it first try, that'll be another small bit of time for Mills to catch back up. Mills able to do his blind movement, looked very comparable to Richard's, so that's a good job by Mills there to make it that high up on the wall. It's not that easy to do.
Now we're just seeing Richard skipping through multiple cutscenes, getting towards the first dungeon of the game, which is also the Ginso tree.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And what's this item that Richard's picking up for anyone unfamiliar?
This was the water vein, which is actually the key for the first dungeon that we're approaching. And it's interesting because right now you see Gumo holding that key, but we actually have it, and it's because of the entire sequence breaks that we're doing, and we went through the whole area backwards. Right. So right now you see another cutscene that was supposed to play way back before you even got that item.
It's one of my favorite little bits of this run. Mills able to get through his Grotto Skip as well with a bit of trouble, but he's passed. Grotto Skip for today is a distant memory. Another 3 attempts for Mills, so he is able to tie Richard there. Oh, we see Richard climbing up the left wall, as you already mentioned, lurking. Richard's next destination, his next target, his objective is the first dungeon. Along the way, we're going to see another level up and then another quick detour for an extra ability cell. As we mentioned, ability cell is going to be very important throughout the run to level up and skip different cutscenes and whatnot. Speaking of which, I think we see some of that from Mills on the right side right now. And then lurking all...
A small cutscene with where Goomba's just like taking the water rain and just moving around. It doesn't save that much time, but overall, like some of these cutscenes that we're gonna skip later on are actually gonna be like longer than a minute. So
definitely,
it's good to vary a lot.
Yes, so I think I'll toss to you again. Tell us a little bit about Ginso Tree, but more importantly, tell me how you pronounce Ginso Tree. I'm putting you on the spot, Lurk.
Well, I pronounce it Ginso, and I always have been.
See, I think I vary. I mentioned this in the last race. Ginso Tree. I guess maybe we should move past the pronunciation of it. You want to tell us a little bit about this first dungeon? Looks like we may be having a hair of technical difficulties. Nothing we can't figure out. We're smart people, hopefully. So on the left side, we're going to see Richard. In the first few rooms of the Ginso Tree, we always like to use the word verticality here. It's become a bit of a community meme, but it's true. This area is a very, very vertical dungeon. And you're going to see Richard using most of the skills that he has so far, primarily his double jumping and wall jumping skills, along with, I guess, just single jump to move through. The Ginso Tree also introduces these portals. Go in one portal, come out the other. It's not a very complicated topic. And he's going to be progressing through a little bit of a puzzle room in advance before coming up to the mini boss. So, Lurkin, do you want to talk about that mini boss?
Oh yeah, that mini boss is kind of slightly RNG, but not really. The whole mini boss is like he has 5 areas to spawn, and he could spawn randomly in each of them. But there is a 1-frame tell, which is 1/60th of a second, where the mini boss pops up where he's gonna be next, and you could head towards them. So it's a very tricky boss that you could lose a lot of time on if you're not that consistent at catching that 1-frame tell.
Right, definitely. And if it sounds difficult to see a 1-frame tell at 60 frames per second, you are correct. Like, it's something that I know I'm personally not great at, and it's very impressive.
I'm horrible at it.
Like Richard doing it well. Looks like at the entrance to Ginso, we're about a 1 minute and 20-second deficit. So Mills is in second place on the right, and first place is Richard on the left. After this mini-boss is going to be progressing through a handful of additional rooms before getting to the next skill. There's a lot that happens in this early run, so for anyone who may have never seen this game, it's okay if you aren't following everything. We'll do our best to keep you up to date. But what's Bash lurking?
Bash is the best skill in this game, hands down. It's a nice skill that allows you to hook into something, a lantern, an enemy, a projectile, and it launches Ori in a direction, and then whatever you grab goes in the other direction. So it's just kind of like bouncing off something, which allows you to travel fairly fast.
Right. It's a very versatile skill. It's a very unique skill, although I would not be surprised to start seeing it sort of implemented. I think like Guacamelee 2 is going to have a sort of Bash-like mechanic. Anyway, we're going to see Richard use Bash to not only move around, but to solve puzzles, and later we'll be using it for... it can also be used in combat. It's just a very, very useful skill. We're going to see Richard on the left doing another trick called key duplication, which I think I'll throw to you again, Lurking.
Alright, key duping is pretty much what you do is you need to grab keys, and if you put keys in the door and then die while still in the door, the keys are actually going to be put back into your inventory and respawn back on the map. So pretty much Richard just duplicated 3 keys by dying with them in the door, and now he could pick up 4 more. So he has a total of 7 keys, or he's only supposed to have 4. And he could carry these keys towards different doors in different areas of the game, which is going to be very useful in a second.
Definitely. Worth noting, just to be extra explicit about that point, keystones, any keystone can be used for any keystone door. It's not like a specific named key for a named door or anything like that. So those extra keystones, even though they cost time now, are going to save a pretty lengthy underwater swimming section, which not only is slow, but is actually going to be impossible because, as you see Richard on the left, still in first place, we are not going to be finishing the Ginso Escape for this run. Instead, we're going to teleport back to a little spirit well we touched on earlier back in Moon Grotto, and we're going to get into Swamp in a whole different fun or awful way, depending on your point of view.
I would say it's fun. It's very difficult, but it's fun and very satisfying when you get it.
I would
So
agree.
what you're gonna see Richard do for that trick is pretty much manipulating a frog and his shots to break walls that you're not supposed to be able to break in a regular scenario, and it will be able to get you into the Thornfell Swamp without completing the Ginso escape, which usually is the way for you to get there.
Oh man, I'm hyped. I did not see Richard take a safety save, which means that if he misses this, he's not back incredibly far, but he will have to do a bit of that blind movement again. We're going to see Richard position this Frankie. There's 2 barricades to break. It's not a Frankie, it's a frog. Whatever, it's an enemy. There's 1 barricade down. This next barricade is tricky. You have to get up high enough because there are weird verticality rules on the frog's projectile. Nicely done, putting on a clinic on that swamp entry. It's going to be progressing onwards towards swamp.
And
then
while Richard was going through that whole sequence, we saw Mills kind of going through the Ginso tree, finishing it up, getting towards that second mini boss to exit. Let's see how his key duping goes. And he gets it.
Good. Good. That placement to successfully die in the right spot to do key dupe is closer than it looks, and so you saw Mills sort of very carefully positioning himself. Nicely done and a successful key dupe. And meanwhile, we have Richard on the left picking up another skill. What skill is that? What could it be?
Stomp, if I recall correctly, which is pretty much the best use of it is traveling downwards very fast, because it allows you to just stomp down, break anything below you, and makes you go faster. In a speedrun scenario, we mainly use it just to go faster, but it has a lot of different uses as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We're going to see Richard then exiting out the same path he used to get in. Previously, he broke those barricades using a frog. Now he's going to reuse the same frog for another purpose, which is grabbing another ability cell. But to get up here, you need quite a bit of height. Nice. That
was close.
So it's always a little bit spooky.
Well played by Richard. That's a very difficult trick. I find it harder than the swamp entry for some reason.
Well, there are some safety strats you can do, but Richard wanted to go fast. Richard also coming up on the left to the Kuro cutscene skip. I didn't really like that shot. He's going to line up again and again. This is a trick that... nice job. What happens there is that there's a cutscene that plays, and cutscenes are slow. But the trigger for the cutscene is a very, very thin vertical strip, essentially. And if you bash at the right time, you can bash straight through the trigger, but it is ultra precise. Very difficult to do, so nice job by Richard. We also saw Richard grab another health cell, which is...
I want to direct your attention to Mills and see him go through the entry.
Yeah. See how I can pull this one off.
Pretty good so far.
Mm-hmm. We also see Mills going for a slightly different method. Richard opted to bring the frog down with him. Mills going for nails it. Wow, making it look
perfectly.
Easy. Nice.
If you want to explain real quick what the technique that he used there, because I don't think we touched base at all on the double bashing.
Yeah, definitely. Double bashing is a trick where if you bash something, right, aim it in some direction, if you release the bash and then bash the same object again on the next frame, you can sort of glitch the game a little bit and throw yourself in the same direction as the bash. It allows, well, it has a lot of uses, which is very useful. Also worth pointing out, as we mentioned at the start, Mills is playing on keyboard mouse, and keyboard mouse double bashing is generally easier than it is on controller, which is probably why you didn't see Richard go for that different method.
Yeah, and it's mainly easier because keyboard and mouse, we utilize the mouse wheel, which you could just scroll, and it pretty much gets it very consistently, while on the controller, you need to actually just click it way faster, and it's more difficult.
I do want to say we did have a quick death from Richard. Richard's still with a comfortable lead, and Richard is watching his opponent, so Richard knows that he's in the lead. I am always curious for different runners whether that will or will not affect their play. For Richard, I imagine it won't. He's just gonna, do his game and see what kind of time he can get. But it's gotta be sort of nice mentally for Richard to know that he has the lead despite the death.
Yeah, it always just helps, but it could also be kind of negative towards you if you know you're in the lead. It just puts more pressure on you, knowing that you need to keep this performance. We'll see how he does.
Totally. Meanwhile, on the right,
he missed the jump.
Good value safety save, though. That's a pretty common safety save to make for that exact reason. As you said, that little jump there is not easy.
Oh, he missed it again. It's a very difficult jump.
Solidifying Richard's lead here. Lurkin, do you want to tell us about the next trick that Richard's coming up to?
Yeah, Richard's about to do a trick called Fast Stompless, which allows you to, you're supposed to, in the game, to keep going left right here and stomp a bunch of rocks over Kuro's head, which makes the rocks fall down on Kuro, and then she just moves around. But what we're gonna do here is, instead of stopping it, he directed the spider's shot towards those rocks, went away pretty fast to despawn a barrier between the shot and the rocks, and then while the shot is traveling towards the rocks, he quickly went over, picked up the ability cell, and in the meantime, the shot preceded the storyline by hitting the rocks.
Yeah,
and he just got feather, which is another interesting skill.
Good explanation. To give a quick race update before things are about to get real crazy for Richard. Mills did unfortunately miss his Kuro cutscene skip, which is going to cost him some additional time, so Richard's solidifying his lead even further. But Richard on the left is going to start some really crazy stuff. First and foremost, a trick known as the Sarabash, which is based on Mills's questionnaire response, is actually something that attracted him to the game. This is a very powerful but also very difficult and precise sequence break. You're supposed to need to go to a second dungeon, restore wind, before you can make it through this section. Instead, Richard is going to precisely manipulate some birds in order to try to get up there early and allow us to skip the entire second dungeon.
Yep. And we just saw Richard accidentally killing the bird, which is completely destroys the trick, and he had to die and go through his save again, and he got it in the second try. Pretty well done.
I also want to point out, this is something worth pointing out that may be more valuable to the existing Ori crowd, but I want to say it anyway. Ordinarily, all of these spikes deal 4 damage, which means that if you touch the spikes one time during Sarabash, it's just you're dead. It's over. You're done. Richard opted for an early 5 health. He's going to need 5 before the end. I actually saw Mills do the same thing. Because of that additional health, Richard was able to survive and get through his Sarapass, even though it was not a perfectly crystal clean attempt. It was still good enough to get through.
And we just saw Mills do another cutscene skip, which is one of the longest cutscenes in the game, so good thing he got that. And do you want to explain what Richard's about to do right now?
I do. Trick? So it may be difficult to see Richard's screen because he has a save anywhere open. Richard is going to be doing a trick known as a Terra Break in order to break through the second barricade in taking another bit of damage there. The second barricade in Sarapass, he's going to take an intentional death there after spending in a certain spot, good job, and basically carry through quick death, that's fine, basically carry through his charge jump momentum in order to break that. That trick was, we've had a bunch of different ways over time to get through that second barricade, and very well done. Just very well executed by Richard.
Costly death in the Valley of the Wind. He has to go back to his save from way back.
That's one of the rougher deaths in the whole run, I think. Do you agree with that?
It's one of the worst.
Yeah, so on the left, we see Richard about to skip another cutscene. As I mentioned, anytime you see these save anywhere glitches, it's usually to skip cutscenes, and this one is no exception. We have watched this cutscene today, so it is a cutscene that exists. It's a long one.
I want to say we watched it more than once, I believe.
We probably have. But Richard is through. He's going to be exiting right back down this giant vertical column the same way that he ascended. Meanwhile, Mills is sort of heading towards Valley of the Wind. We may see a bit of a high 5 depending on Mills' speed here. So what can we expect next out of Richard on the left as Mills starts to approach his next trick?
Right now, Richard's just going to head towards an area called the Misty Woods. I would say the most fun and satisfying areas to watch runners do, especially for runners as good as Richard. And he's going to go there to pick up the second to last skill, which is Climb, and then...
Yeah, Richard actually taking a handful of deaths on the way out, still with a comfortable lead, so unlikely for the time being to change Richard's standing in this particular race. But just a handful of deaths. Richard is currently, as you can see, he toggled his UI back on. His user interface is visible. Richard is down at 1 health, which means that despite having 5 health total, the spikes are currently super dangerous. Now, Richard right now has 4 health, and all of the spikes in Misty Woods, our next area, deal only 3 damage, which means that Richard has a bit more safety, but he's still going to want to be really, really careful.
And if you watch to the right, you're going to see what you're supposed to do instead of fast accomplice. This is what the game expects you to do, which is what Mills is about to do in a second.
Yeah, Mills opting to not do the fast accomplice trick. It's clearly not required or anything. We do it like any trick just because it happens to be faster, but it's also a very, very precise trick. Despite doing it the vanilla way, Mills is able to break the rocks and will be picking up his feather, so he's going to get to go through Sorrow Pass and approach his attempt at Sorrow Bash, as Richard is making very short work of Misty Woods.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how Sorrow Bash goes for Mills, because it is arguably one of the most difficult tricks in the game, and just knowing that Mills is still a new runner, we'll see how he does through that. Hopefully he gets the first try.
Well, Sorrow Bash is also interesting. It's a very versatile trick. You can do Sorrow Bash in a lot of different ways, depending on both your input type and just personal preference. And so it's always interesting. Like, I'll freely tell you that I'm not personally as familiar with Mills's runs as opposed to Richard. So I'm really interested to see exactly how he opts to do it. Good save on the frog. Wow.
Yeah, that was close.
That was a close one. Do you want to quickly tell us the skill that Richard picked up on the left?
Richard just picked up a skill called Climb, which allows you, instead of just jumping on walls, you could just like grab onto them and just walk up the walls as if they're floors. In the run, it doesn't have much use except for one trick that we're going to use at the very end. Other than that, Climb is kind of pointless for this run. We just get it because it's an all skills run.
Yeah, Richard with another quick death in Misty. He's taken quite a number of these little quick deaths. Not enough to change the lead in this race, barring some really insane play by Mills and some more costly deaths from Richard, but certainly a bit of time lost here and there. And Mills having a bit of trouble with the Sorrow Bash, which is not surprising because it was,
that was so close.
Even though Mills has 5 health, meaning that he can survive one hit from these spikes, the birds do not have that same luxury. Mills making good work of his double bashes, though. Nice! And he's through.
Alright, he made it.
That level up, extremely valuable. I think it saved his life.
I think it saved him. I believe it saved him.
I'd have to watch it in slow-mo, but I'm pretty sure it did. And we have an instant replay. Shout out to Hobbs again. So Mills is going to get to continue into Sorrow Pass here. He's going to be doing a rocket jump off of this frog in order to break the first barricade, continuing on to charge jump, etc., etc. We'll cover it as it comes up. Meanwhile, Richard on the left is going to be approaching not one, but 2 paired mini-bosses in Misty Woods that, if executed correctly, you will barely even see.
There they are, and they're gone. Wait, no. Never mind.
They're almost gone. Now they're gone
now.
Okay, so with the Misty mini-boss out of the way, there's something that Richard is supposed to do, which is carry an orb. He's not going to do that because who wants to carry orbs anyway? Not Richard.
We did that once in Blackroot, and it was not fun.
It's enough. It's enough for one run. So we're going to see Richard just rushing out. Richard currently has 10 out of 11 total skills in this game. He only has 1 to go. Remember, the category is called All Skills and some other modifiers, but mostly it's the All Skills part that's interesting.
He missed that.
Oh no! Oh, he's gonna do a rocket jump, I bet, to save it.
We're gonna see another rocket jump there.
Yes!
He's always fun.
I love it. If you direct your attention to the right quickly, Mills is about to take his attempt at a Terror Break, opting to use this save because he didn't do a Ghost Door. Interesting touch there to intentionally damage himself down because he knows he's gonna have to take the death momentarily, making an artificial save up near the top, buffering his charge up momentum, and out he goes.
The laser got him. There's a laser right after that jump, so you gotta be very careful moving up it.
We're almost clear. Okay, we're clear. So anyway, so what can we expect from Richard then?
Right now, Richard's gonna do a very oh wait, he already did the door thing. Okay, so Richard's approaching the final ability, which is Light Grenade.
Going too fast.
Which is yet another ability which you're only going to use once, and it's going to be used in the same trick as the one with Climb, so that's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Oh, definitely. I want to take another second to just add a bit of information. We've seen a number of these save anywhere tricks, and I mentioned back at the start that Richard is one of our few hybrid runners. He plays most of the game on controller, but is actually switching over to the keyboard and mouse for a handful of tricks. One of them is these save anywhere tricks, because doing menu manipulation on a mouse with a cursor is just, not only it's just a little bit simpler and faster, but it's also safer based on the way that the trick works. You don't have the potential to accidentally level up in the wrong spot. We're also going to see Richard using keyboard mouse for his grenade jumps, which is a trick we haven't seen yet, but we'll be getting there. It's an interesting usage of our climb.
It's going to be, and I'm very excited for that.
It's a fun time. I hope we get to see some nice, clean grenade jumps during this match.
So right now we're just going to see Richard start heading towards Mount Huro, which is the final dungeon of the game.
Yeah, Mills with little bit of trouble right off the bat, sort of accidentally fell down with his super OP meteor kick, but was able to do another rocket jump right back up. So Mills on the right gets to take his attempt at Misty Woods, an area that is considered a favorite by many people, including myself. It just tends to have some very difficult but very smooth movement. And then meanwhile, Richard has every single skill in the game. He's fast on his way. You could say that Richard is in go mode. If anyone's familiar with Link to the Past, then we just have to sort of finish things out from here.
And now you're gonna see him do a couple of trick in a second, which is called the door warp. If you want to explain what that is.
Oh, do I? Door warp is a wonderful, wonderful trick. It's a frame perfect trick. Ori in the Blind Forest DE runs at 60 frames per second. So what you're gonna see Richard do, he's gonna enter Mount Horror, the third dungeon of the game. Then the game's gonna autosave, and Richard's gonna exit and reload and try to press up to enter the door on the frame. The game loads. If he does, something very strange is going to happen. And he got it first try. That's amazing. So that just teleports you down to the bottom. We don't really know why, like on a technical level, that happens, but that's not important. The point is that Richard is on to the final escape. Oh yeah, totally. So, oh god, this escape. It's certainly exciting, isn't it?
Yep, definitely. It's one of my favorite parts. Probably my favorite part of the run, and one of my favorite parts is casual. It's just an amazing, all-around sequence.
Totally. What can we expect? What are the dangers and hazards facing Richard as he
Everything's
does this?
a danger. If you take one tick of damage anywhere, you're gonna die, because you're gonna have to go through a poisonous water, because we never did the Ginso escape. And as you see, Richard has 6 health, and he needs at least 4 health to get through that. So if he does perfect movement, he should have 2 HP to spare. But everything else does more than 2 damage, so...
Nice job getting through. Now we're about to see one final trick, another frame-perfect trick known as a grenade jump. It is a way to preserve a ton of speed off of a wall charge jump in order to skip a ton of time out of the finale. Okay, misses a first attempt. Richard's going to take a handful of attempts at this because it saves something like 35 seconds if you get it first try. So even second try, that's going to save him like 30 seconds. GG, Richard. I agree.
GG, Richard. His final time should be coming up in a second.
Yeah, Richard's timer isn't going to end just yet. He still has to walk to the right with Naru a little bit. So GG by Richard will be taking the victory in this match. But we still have one runner going. Mills is quick on his way through Misty Woods. And seems
He's
to be doing
he already got his line. He's just working his way out and attempting to finish the run out. He's almost there.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how many safety saves Mills opts for. It seems like from what I've been seeing, he's been going for some pretty aggressive strats. I haven't really seen him doing a lot of strats that are too easy. And Richard did finish that out. Congratulations to Richard.
Great time.
Well done by Richard, taking the victory in this match and the victory in the first match out of the Valley of the Wind group. So GG to him. We'll be chatting with Richard, I'm sure, later in an interview, but we want to wait just a moment at least and pay attention to Mills as he approaches his
see if he
boss.
Gets the fast skill.
Yep, that's a safe bet there.
Yeah.
Looks like Mills opting for a bit of a safer strategy. That's fine. Still took out those mini bosses, no problem. You can do
still relatively quick.
Oh yeah, totally. You can do a number of fast rests to take them both out, or you can just kill them one at a time. It's, he got through it cleanly. That's what matters.
I mean, I don't believe it's much time of difference between the strat that Richard used compared to this. It's just a few seconds, nothing that major.
Yeah, agreed. It's not much one way or the other. As we sort of alluded to multiple times, the most important thing in probably not just Ori, but any speed game is just clean play and no unintended deaths. We'll probably be saving more time than any of these individual tricks.
Time save.
It absolutely is. So, lurking, I guess we've sort of already covered this, but what can we expect out of Mills in the coming sections? I don't know how strongly we paid attention to it. We sort of skipped over Richard doing that little door trick. Maybe we can take that.
I was going to explain the door trick. So we're going to see Mills head towards the light grenade ability. And right here, you're going to see him make a save down here. Grab the lever and rekindle the save and then die. And that holds that door in the bottom right of the screen up. Generally, you would have to lift the door up with the lever and then just run towards that door as quick as you can to make it through. But we don't want to do that because it's slow.
It is definitely slow. It is slow, and all these lasers will kill you immediately because they're mean like that. But we see Mills getting through what we call the Yoka laser, Yoka cycle. It's a laser, that's what matters. Having a bit of trouble getting up around here. If you sort of do a high
That
charge
saved
there,
actually. I think that level up saved him.
Oh god.
Okay. That level up saved him, I believe.
I think that's 2 level ups that we've seen save Mills.
Yep. And now he's gonna do his attempt at this cutscene skip, which I would like to watch that cutscene one day. It's very fun.
That's what the casual playthrough is for. It is nice to go back sometimes. It's funny you spend as much time with a speed run as something like Ori, you can forget a lot of the details about the story and cutscenes and areas that you don't generally go to. Anyway, so Mills has picked up his 11th and final skill, Light Grenade. He's going to be following the same path that Richard tread before him, heading as quickly as he possibly can back towards Mount Horu and then through the final escape. It is still conceivable that Mills could get a PB. I don't want to jinx anything or give you misinformation, but we'll be keeping an eye on that timer as it goes.
Yeah, I think he is 40 seconds behind his PB at Light Grenade, so it's very possible if he has a really good sequence in the end, depending on how his PB went, which I'm not very sure about.
Well, I can say this. Despite the loss in the race here, Mills still definitely has the potential, just barely outrunning that boulder. Oh my gosh. Oh god.
Oh.
He's alive. Indiana Jones lives another day.
Yeah, that boulder is an insta-kill if anyone didn't know that.
Well, anyway, Mills is past the Indiana Jones boulder section. We'll teleport back to the Thornfell Swamp teleporter, which we actually stopped by earlier, way back before the Ginso tree, if anyone remembers that. Who remembers that? That was a long time ago.
I definitely do, because you said to keep that in mind, because we're going to visit it later.
I wasn't expecting anybody to listen to me. This changes everything.
Hey, at least one person is.
You know, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Mills just having a bit of trouble trying to sort of get back around in order to get his nice clean jumps over to the left side. I don't know if this is something we explicitly talked about too frequently, but energy in this game can be used for multiple purposes. We're going to see Mills take a handful of safety saves, which is very, very intelligent for any runner, never mind the fact that he's new or it's a smart move for anyone. And then we'll also see Mills, I'm sure, do a handful of charge dashes as we get over to the left here and get closer to the actual Mount Horu door. Now, Richard, I don't actually recall whether he got a first or second try door warp. It was fast.
He got first try.
Got first try? Okay.
Yeah, he got first try door warp, second try grenade jump.
Right. So as is a fun game we like to play with our unsuspecting runners, what is your prediction for door warp?
I'm gonna say fourth try.
Fourth try? Okay. I'm gonna say second try. That's my prediction. We'll see how it goes. The autosave is going to go off for Mills on the right side, exiting and reloading has to press up in 1/60th of a second.
Oh, he got it first
try.
Nice.
Mills, the madman, proving both of us wrong. Oh man. Okay, so with that first try door warp, that brings Mills into the final escape. We've already talked about it. It's a very spooky area. And Mills has to make it through virtually without taking any damage whatsoever in order to have enough health to survive the swim through the poison water.
Well, let me do the question now. How many attempts at this whole escape do you think he's going to have?
First try. Mills is going to nail it perfectly. Yeah. Look at these stomp cancels. These are the stomp cancels of a professional. Oh god. That's scary. Stomp cancels of a professional. Okay, so Mills stomping that. There are multiple ways to get through this. Richard had opted for a charge dash approach. Mills opting to use the charge flame approach. Mills also turning his user interface on. You saw Richard with his UI off most of the time. Mills opting to have it on since there's no dialogue here anyway. Swimming through the water. Mills does have 6 health. You need a minimum of 5. Good call, because Mills took 5 damage. With only
Another
5
interesting thing, if you saw the charge jump that he did at the bottom, that's to avoid Kuro from spawning so we could have our time. But generally, if you don't do that, Kuro is gonna spawn, and you have very minimal time to be outside, or Kuro is just gonna kill you.
Absolutely. So Mills just taking a few attempts, didn't get it first or second try. Thankfully, this is a trick. Since Kuro is despawned, you can try this trick as many times in a row as you like until you either run out of energy or just decide to finish out the run. Normally going on 4th try. I want to emphasize this is a frame-perfect trick. Nice job. Honestly, that still probably saved him time, even on that 5th attempt. That's how powerful.
Yeah, that cutscene at the end is very long, so I would say that saved him some time.
Very, very long.
Good job on his part.
Definitely a GG. Again, Mills' timer will not end just yet. There's a bit of holding right, but all of the really skill-intensive parts of the run are done. At this point, you can finish the run by like holding right with your nose, or like I've had my cat finish runs before. It's sort of a little bit of a victory lap. Mills will be finishing up shortly, and then we will be getting into an interview at some point. Here we're gonna talk a little bit and make sure that both of our runners are ready for an interview before we do that. Mills coming in, and he's done. That was pretty close to a PB for Mills. It wasn't a PB, but that was about a minute away.
Yeah, it was a minute away. A minute and 2 seconds.
Which I think is pretty impressive for a tournament race. I don't know Mills too well personally, but I know that for anyone, nerves can play a factor. And to pull out a run a minute off a PB in a setting like this is, I think, impressive for anyone.
And until we get ready for the interview, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. What were your overall thoughts about this race? Is it as good as you expected? Did you expect anything different?
Race was sick. It was 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 race. It was, in all seriousness, and we'll talk to our racers any time now. But the outcome of this race, like the fact that Richard won, is not unexpected. No disrespect to Mills, just based on PBs, Richard's PB being almost 9 minutes faster, you would expect Richard to take the victory, which he did, despite a few deaths. Still a very clean play by Richard, and I was very proud to see Mills, who just learned the game very recently, like after AGDQ. Very cool to see him come in a minute away.
Yeah, definitely. He performed very well for any runner.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? I'll sort of reflect the question back at you.
This race was extremely fun, and it kind of worries me because I'm gonna have to race both these runners within this week, and they're both very good. So I'm very excited to see how the other runs go. But overall, as good as I expected. The result, pretty much what I expected. But the performance by both runners was better than I thought they would be, which is very good.
I agree. Well, we have the one and only Richard in here with us. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Grim. Hello, Lurking. How are you two doing tonight?
We're doing
dandy.
Great.
The better question is, how are you?
I am feeling pretty good after that victory.
Yeah.
I didn't win any games in the previous tournament, so being able to actually contribute to the win column for this tournament feels good.
Absolutely. I guess I'll ask you a question.
And I got to a one frame too. That was awesome. Oh my god. I was like, if I get one framed, I didn't try to get one framed, obviously. I tried to get early grotto cycle, but I remember thinking prior to the tournament, if I got one framed, I would have thought that would be pretty cool.
Well, it definitely was cool, I would say.
I think you'd have to be pretty talented to try to intentionally one frame yourself.
I mean, that would be a very good one frame trick to do, even though it loses you a bunch of time.
Yeah, well, congrats on your victory. We also have Millsmess in here. Hello, Mills. Congratulations on your finish.
Thank you.
Yo, nice run, Mills.
All right, good job, Mills. GG.
Right.
So, Mills, let me ask you this question. How did you feel throughout the race? Like, as you were running, were you feeling confident about your play, or were you like scared? It's like, I gotta perform here, and you're like, crap, I messed this up. What was your overall thought process throughout the whole race?
I felt pretty nervous at the start, but the run for me went pretty well until there were some major mistakes about halfway through. But by that point, I'd sort of calmed down a bit, and I also knew that winning, so that also served to calm me down. I enjoyed the double rocket jump going into Misty, so it was kind of fun.
Well, even with all that, you were still about a minute away from your PB, so you still did very well. Good job on all that.
Yeah, I agree. I did like that. And you had a really cool save, like before your Sarabash, you almost hit the frog off the ledge, and you were able to just barely save it, Mills. That was entertaining.
Yeah, that was great.
What was your reaction the instant you leveled up on Sarabash to save you?
Oh, yeah, it's because I grabbed that extra experience in Ginso, so my levels were messed up. So, yeah, that was like, oh great, we have to waste a few frames every time I fail this now. But actually, I think the reason I got Sarabash at the end is because I had the extra health because of the level up, so...
Yeah, well, I want to say you also got saved by untimed level up another time in the run. I can't remember exactly at what point. But...
Okay, I must have missed that one.
Do you remember when it was, Grim?
Not offhand. I think I'd have to watch it again.
Yeah.
I have a question for each of you. Mills, I'm going to start with you, and then Richard, I'll ask you a question afterwards. Mills, my question to you is, your PB currently is 41.44, which you got today, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, congratulations. My question to you is, I always like to ask people about their mentalities when they're running. Given that PB, and given that you were doing quite well in this race, given that you had the potential to PB, is that something that you feel motivates you to do better, or do you feel like it adds to your nerves, or was that even a factor for you in the race?
For me, definitely added to the nerves a little bit, but I think more it helps me sort of concentrate. Okay, if I can make this split perfect, then I'm sort of keeping up with PB. I find it mostly as a focusing effect. And then once I know that the run's no good, then I start to play worse.
That's totally fair. Yeah. And Richard, the question I want to ask you, given your insane, astounding, skyrocketing sort of improvement from last tournament to today, what are your overall goals for this tournament? Like, do you have a...
Well, I actually already met it because I won a match. And honestly, it felt pretty bad last year not being able to win anything. I mean, I feel like it was a given, like given the amount of practice that I had put in last year compared to this year, but I'm, very happy about that. Overall goals for this tournament, yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that I won a match.
Congratulations.
Yeah, GG. Congratulations in the win.
GG to both of you guys. That's a one win for Richard. That's the only match out of our Valley of the Wind group, and that's gonna about close it off. That's all the Ori action we have for you today. We do have 2 additional matches tomorrow. The first one, I believe, is at 2 p.m. Eastern on Speed Gaming 2. But stick around. We'll be giving out regular updates on Ori. We have a lot more Ori action coming at you over the next handful of weeks. Lurking, it was a pleasure commentating with you today.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to be with you, Grim.
And congrats, Richard, on your win. Congrats, Mills, on finishing out. And have a very wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a good night.
Good night.
The death count live safely, because it is, if we didn't mention that earlier, it is the most punishing area in the game.
Oh no! I'm sorry to interrupt. Richard on the left attempted a trick known as another quick death grotto, and we're going to get into Swamp in a whole different fun or awful way, depending on your point of view.
I would say it's fun. It's very difficult, but it's fun and very satisfying when you get it.
I would agree.
So what you get to see Richard do for that trick is
barricade down. This next barricade is tricky. You have to get up high enough because there are weird verticality rules on the Frog's projectile. Nicely done, putting on a clinic on that swamp entry. It's going to be progressing. We also see Mills going for a slightly different method. Richard opted to bring the frog down with him. Mills going for it, nails it. Wow, making it look
perfectly.
Nice.
If you want to explain, and stomp a bunch of rocks over Kuro's head, which makes the rocks fall down on Kuro, and then she just moves around. But what we're gonna do here is, instead of stomping it, he directed the spider
jump momentum in order to break that. That trick was, we've had a bunch of different ways over time to get through that second barricade, and very well done. It's very well executed by Richard.
In the Valley.
Like, I'll freely tell you that I'm not personally as familiar with Mills' runs as opposed to Richard, so I'm really interested to see exactly how he opts to do it. Good save on the frog! Wow!
Yeah, that was close.
That was a close one hit from these spikes. The birds do not have that same luxury. Mills making good work of his double bashes, though. Nice! And he's through.
Alright, he made it.
That level up extremely... I hope we get to see some nice, clean grenade jumps during this match.
So right now we're just going to see Richard start heading towards Mount Huro, which is the final dungeon of the game.
Take a handful of attempts at this because it saves something like 35 seconds if you get it first try. So even second try, that's going to save him like 30 seconds. GG, Richard. I agree. GG, Richard.
His final time should be coming up in a second.
Having a bit of trouble getting up around here. If you sort of do a high
that saved
there,
actually. I think that level up saved him.
Oh god.
Okay. That level up saved him, I believe.
I think that's 2 level ups that we've seen. Say this. despite the loss in the race here, Mills still definitely has the potential. Just barely outrunning that boulder. Oh my gosh. Oh god.
Oh.
He's alive. Indiana Jones lives another. I want to emphasize this is a frame-perfect trick. Nice job. Honestly, that still probably saved him time, even on that 5th attempt. That's how...